This is something I've been looking forward to ever since the film premiered at Sundance. Attended the world premiere, loved it. I want to start with both of you at Sundance. Let's start from the very beginning of this adventure that we've been on. What was it like to premiere this film at Sundance, and why is Sundance such an important place for independent cinema?
Well, I mean, for me, it's just always been the kind of ultimate dream, Sundance. And I think the reason it felt so moving for me, particularly because my short film that I wrote and directed, Careful How You Go, was at Sundance in 2018. And it was really because of that and because of Sundance and their support that, you know, I was able to make a feature. And so the fact that it just, being there is so incredible because it's genuinely a place for people who love movies. And it's just kind of magical. It's so supportive. Everyone who works there is so kind and so brilliant, and everyone is very generous with their time, you know, and you feel very much like everyone can talk to everyone. It's kind of just like you find yourself in a coffee shop, in a line, and, you know, everyone's talking about movies and how much they love them. And it's just the best. And, you know, for us, it was like, thank God, because it was the only time we got to see the movie. It was the only time that me and Carey and Bo and so many of the crew, were able to be together.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you said you were at the premiere and you saw the Q&A, because I genuinely can't remember the Q&A. So I was just so overwhelmed, you know, and we both, I think, walked around in a daze. I remember sitting in the car on the way to the after party, and my team were like, wow, that went really well. And they were like on Twitter, and they were like, oh wow, it's doing this and this and this. And I was like, just sort of like weird, hazy white noise of, I don't know, it was so, and Emerald and I both at the after party were just sort of shell shocked, I think, by the whole experience, because it was just, watching it with an audience was really amazing. And I just think it was, we were kind of on cloud nine, but it was very surreal, the whole thing. And I love Sundance, you know, my first ever sort of real film and education was at Sundance. And got picked up there, and, you know, I've been back there a number of times with different things, and always generally films like this, like really, really small, you know, incredibly quick shoots, and films that we love. And then, you know, they find this platform at Sundance, and it's just an amazing place to go with a film like that.
I wanted to follow that up with the Sundance experience, but the audience feedback. So I always love these stories outside of a festival when you get to screen this film. And that's the problem. You didn't get to really screen it with an audience many times. You know, it was supposed to go to South by Southwest and screen there. And you would have had a traditional award season where you would have went around and talked to members. So I guess you really only have the couple of showings at Sundance. But my question is, what is a reaction from someone at Sundance that you remember that really stuck with you? We'll start with Carey.
Gosh,
I know it's a far back. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just thinking back to sort of, life when we could talk to people in the same room, and there was so much, you know, reaction at the festival. Just, you know, the journalists that we were speaking to, and again, like the after party did feel like a complete daze. But I think it was really interesting to me. You know, there wasn't one single interaction, but it was just more what a kind of broad audience it felt like the film had found, that it wasn't sort of a particular, you know, demographic that was sort of really taken by the film. It felt like men and women and, you know, young and old. And there's so much feeling for the film, and so much, and it made people want to just talk so much about it, you know. Felt like interviews could have gone on for much longer than the time allotted. You know, it was that kind of feeling. It was just like people wanted to talk about how they felt about it a lot. And that felt like a really exciting reaction.
I was looking through all interviews. I was reading up about a ton of this stuff. As you know, I've been following it. So I'm trying to think of a couple different questions that you have not been asked before. One that I don't know if anyone has ever asked you is, what do your significant others think about the film?
I mean, do you know what? It's so difficult to be objective when it's someone you love. I know that my husband is, you know, he's just so wonderful, and he's just so proud, you know, and I think honestly it would be impossible for even him to know how he feels about it outside of me, because but I think there was sort of, certainly his response was very moving and very lovely, because he said it felt like I'd made it. And a couple of my friends who have been able to see it have said the same thing, that that they would have known it was me who made it, even if they hadn't known, because there were so many things in there that just have been my obsession since, you know, me and my husband have been together for 16 years, since we were babies, really. And so there are, you know, you forget, because you're in your own head, that you do, you know, you have a soapbox and you say the same things over and over again, or you listen to the same music, or you like the same manicures. And it was nice that he was like, oh yeah, of course, this is your film.
Yeah, I think it's so, I never know how he really can distance himself enough to really kind of, I think it's hard. I mean, he loved it. You know, he thinks Emerald's a complete genius, as does everyone in my life. And he loved it. But I think it is, yeah, it's difficult for him to be an objective audience. And he also knows, you know, he was with me when we were filming it. He knew how, you know, he was so much sort of, you know, he sort of has met a bunch of the people in the cast. Like, I think it's hard when you're close to something to sort of, he'll never sadly get the experience that the majority of the audience gets, which is like seeing it fresh, no inside, you know, I think you've got the inside knowledge, it's sort of harder to separate, but he absolutely loved it. And it's just incredibly proud of us and of Emerald. And he just loves Emerald. So he's just thought, you know, he just thinks she's completely brilliant. So it was, yeah, lovely for him to finally see. He didn't see it until like a month ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it must be very difficult to be married to Carey, because as her friend and someone who's worked with her, and actually, you know, we've really only known each other since just before we started filming. And, you know, I watched The Dig the other day. And I just, my poor husband, I was like, oh, she's just so good. She's so good, Chris. That's the thing. She's just so good. Look how good she is. He was like, okay, all right, okay. But I think it must be the same for Marcus, but more so, because like, it's not just that you're like amazed by how brilliant somebody is, but like, it's such a pleasure. You know, it's just so, watching Carey work, whoever you are, is just so amazing, because it's just like, I was trying to articulate it the other day. Like, it's just a relief, you know? When she comes on screen, you're like, oh, she's going to do something wonderful. It's just going to be so surprising and riveting. And like, I feel so like, I'm ready. I'm excited. Oh, Carey's just come in the door. I want to see what happens now. Such a rare thing. And I think even if you know her, you can't help but be, I mean, I'm probably even more impressed now than I would have been. I'm sure.
I can tell the love is real between you two. Seriously. The love is real.
Interesting. He did have to, like, he found it very upsetting as well. You know, I think it's, you know, like the majority of people do, he found it really disturbing and really upsetting. So that was, and I was like, oh yeah, you know, slightly sort of like, you know this, you've read this, you know what we were doing, you know, but it really kind of really got him.
All right. So, Emerald, this is a question that might be completely out in left field. I became a fan of Bo Burnham after 8th grade. I was not a fan of his comedy before then. I never saw it. And after 8th grade, when I met him, I slowly started getting into his comedy. Upon watching this film the first time, I did not pick up on this, but on repeat viewings, the film touches upon certain themes that are joked about and explored in his repeat stuff video. So based on your reaction, I'm guessing that there is no correlation between the two.
Well, I think it's probably a bit more, it's sort of yes and no is the answer, because I have been a fan of Bo's since his kind of early stand-up. And I loved 8th grade, obviously, but I was already primed to love it because I thought I just know that he's a genius. And I think certainly it's no coincidence that a lot of the things he talks about in his work are things that touch on, you know, they're definitely aligned, I think. I think certainly, I mean, he's a genius, so I don't want to, you know, impinge or even imply that, you know, but I think that certainly I feel, and when I met him, I felt kind of like-minded. Certainly the way of approaching things with kind of humor and talking about the way that men and women interact, which is something he does so brilliantly in his songs. You know, Lower Your Expectations is a great example of, you know, particularly the expectations of women, you know, the women who eat a ton but are like perfectly tiny, and the women who like only are interested in like giving you blowjobs, but because they love you so much and think you're so great, you know, just whatever it is. So I suppose the answer is that I sort of hoped that someone like him, that in meeting him and him reading that he would get it, which he did, I think.
Yeah, because I just, you know, the weird thing with it is that when I'm watching that video, there's so many parallels to the movie, right? Like, so first and foremost, you incorporate so much pop music in the movie because you love it. But, you know, picking Stars Are Blind, where the line is repeated over and over again, ties into the song. The images within the video of the guy going from the nice guy that everyone loves to being like kind of like demonic also fits in. And if you haven't seen the movie already, shame on you, you should have. The end of the video is basically him suffocating someone, which ties into the end of this movie.
Have I just copied Bo? He never mentioned it. That's very sweet. Was this based on my... that is so funny. I mean, well, look, I guess it makes sense to me because they're really, it does, I've always felt that his work, and again, he's like a lot of annoying geniuses, like Carey too, isn't aware of how supremely brilliant he is. But no, but I've always sort of thought his work was so unbelievably sort of perceptive and clever in that specific regard. And I think he's been brilliant about interrogating and kind of cracking open that nice guy, even his own sort of nice guy appeal. So yeah, but that's very funny. So I've just copied Bo. Well, I'm glad that I copied someone very worthy of copying.
I'm sorry. I just thought, like, I watched it a couple of times. I was like, wow, there's a lot of parallels to this. So
I watched it now.
Yeah. So Carey, you know, speaking of that scene at the end of the film, I read in another interview that you actually wanted to do that scene. Can I ask you why you wanted to do that scene? And actually, did you go back and shoot after you almost died while doing it?
Well, yeah, I did. We did. I think it's just, you know, actors always want to do their own stuff. They don't ever, you know, it's only when you really can't, you're not allowed, that you don't do it. And there are some things that you just can't do, because that's why we have brilliant stunt people. But this was something that we could do. So the stunt team showed us, you know, roughly what that might look like, which was horrible. And then Chris and I did it. And yeah, I think the third take, I mistimed something so that my face wasn't turned the way that it should have been. And I really, couldn't, was sort of, you know, had my face was sort of covered by the pillow and my nose and my mouth, so I couldn't breathe. I thought for a little bit that I could kind of get myself out a bit, but Chris was, you know, doing what we've been doing on every other take, which was really, you know, we were kind of firmly fighting, struggling properly. And so then I realized quite quickly that I couldn't. And so we had sort of a, you know, sort of had thumbs down thing that I, you know, signal. But it was really kind of, it was surprising, because as soon as it happened, I was like, oh, sorry, I didn't want to, you know, because you feel so bad because everyone has to reset and it's like a 2.5 minute shot and you have to go back to the start. And I was like, oh, I really wanted to, you know, make it work and not have to cut. And Chris is expending all this energy and brilliant performance. The camera's really on him. But we cut and we got ready to do it again. And then all of a sudden I just felt so strangely emotional and went outside and just burst into tears. And was very sweetly kind of put back together by my hair and makeup and Emerald. And I think it was just sort of, you know, it's just one of those moments when you're making something and it sort of touches on what's truthful and what's real, is that this is sort of a real, you know, it just felt very frightening. And then we went back to do another take. And I think Emerald just felt like she had it and we didn't need to do it again. So we didn't.
Yeah, it just felt, I think, it just felt for all of us, it just felt like, no. You know, the thing is about any film is that the last thing you ever want to do is hurt anyone. Like, I don't care how, I would never, it's just of no interest. And I think, like, it just felt wrong. We kind of as you say, we started and I was like, oh, no, we don't want to do this. And also, you know, Carey is a ridiculously, professional isn't even kind of big enough word, just committed person. And so, and I think like a lot of actors, but particularly so, like, they will always do what you ask of them. And so it's your responsibility as a director to be the good guy up to a point. I mean, I wish I'd said, actually, we're cutting here, but we did nearly do another one. It was like, yeah, no. But yeah, no. So it was super frightening and super dangerous because, of course, thank God we had all of those safety procedures. But it is deliberately timed to be a shot that is the amount of time it takes to suffocate someone. So had we not known, it would have been it was unbelievably dangerous. And I think it's a sort of, it's a testament to Carey and to Chris as well, but also so many male actors throw themselves out of planes and off buildings and up mountains. And I think what Carey did was as if not more dangerous than all of those things. And so, yeah, it's extraordinary. But yeah, no, it was horrible.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I'm telling you, when I read that, I was like, wow, I cannot believe you put yourself through that. I mean, when you know that now, I mean, your performance was already like amazing and you're going to be an Oscar winner very, very soon. But I mean, this is like next level. Like you just said, it's like Tom, you know, everyone hails Tom Cruise for doing stuff, but this is equally impressive. And you're so committed to the performance in the film. Just kudos to you. Seriously.
And also she plays her own dead body, we should say. It's very, very rare to get an actor who will come in on a day where their face isn't on show. I mean, there's almost no one who won't use a stand-in, especially in a scene where you have to not, you know, she had to be perfectly still for that scene, as kind of Max Greenfield's character, like, manhandles her body in such kind of callous and awful way. And that kind of stuff, you know, the difference it makes for Max and Chris to be, you know, to have that person in the room, it's huge. And that it's just that kind of stuff. It's not just being so committed to your job, but it's also the level of consideration for everyone else, the acknowledgement that even if you're the lead of a film, you're a part of it with other people. That's what I think, you know, made the film possible. I think actually was Carey's commitment.
I wanted to ask about the actual script itself. Obviously, you shopped it around a little bit, like you had to get like a production company behind it, someone to greenlight it. What was the thing that stood out the most to you when you were doing that someone was like, this is like a ridiculous request. I want you to remove this. Like, I don't want this scene in there. What was that scene?
Well, do you know what? It didn't happen that much because not hugely, because Lucky Chap, so Lucky Chap bought it off the pre-title sequence that I pitched them without knowing much else. And they were just like determined that they were in, and I handed the script in, and really we did a bit of a pass, not a huge one. And they were just behind it. They were completely behind it, the whole thing. And so obviously what happened then was that when it went out to different people, some people did want to change things, but that immediately just, that kind of didn't really even get to meeting stage, because luckily there were enough people that really understood the whole thing. And so I was lucky in that people kind of gung-ho by the time I met them. Of course, there were some people who wanted a different ending, a couple of people. But the great thing about that was that, in a way, that's the kind of bellwether for this film. You know, for some people, it's the thing that they can't get on board with and they don't understand and they don't like. But for lots of other people, it is the reason for the film, you know, and it's the thing that feels most real. And the whole thing for me about making this film was that it was something that, you know, was a homage to the, you know, revenge thriller genre, which I love, but it was also a complete subversion of it, and one that put a real person in the middle. And you just can't put a real person in the middle of the story, a woman, and say that the way that we win is by playing by those rules, because we don't, and it's not true. And so, you know, I wouldn't have made the film if we'd had to do it differently, because there would have been no point. There are plenty of films like that, and they're all brilliant. So it was kind of an easy one, that, and I was lucky that I had producers who were behind it.
I know this is a little bit of a sensitive topic, but I'm very curious about it, and I'm sorry for asking in advance. I know it's very strange with this movie, because I feel like most men who have watched this movie are like 100% on board and like big fans of it. I've noticed, and I mean, even, you know, talking to me, I know Matt and, you know, everyone like in the awards world seem to be very big. Female audiences and critics sort of like mixed on it, right? Like the ending, like everyone's like, I'm all on board up until that last 15 minutes. I'm just curious, why do you think that is?
I think, I don't know, it's I mean, firstly, I sort of try and keep away from all that stuff, just because it is kind of not my place to interfere with what people think, but also, like, I'm not a masochist, so it's better to sort of leave it. But I think this film was you can only ever make something that feels true to you, and to your life and to your experience. And understandably, you know, the closer people are to the material, they will have their own perspectives, they will have their own feelings, and that's completely legit, like completely understandable. I never ever for a million years thought that this film would be universally loved. You know, I don't think that's possible, especially if you're talking about stuff like this. No one's experience is the same, and the way that people discuss things, the way that they present things, the way that they talk about things is very different. And so it would be ridiculous for me to expect people to respond to it in any specific way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm sorry if that was an awkward question. I was just curious about it. Carey, going back over to you, your performance is so multifaceted in this film. And you almost are going through different genres as you're making this movie and as the story progresses. Was it difficult for you to kind of switch the tone of your character?
I mean, it really wasn't. I mean, I think it was, you know, what was so great about this whole experience was that I really only had one job. Everything was, I think what Emerald speaks so brilliantly about, she's much more eloquent about this, but, you know, the fact that our lives aren't just one particular thing, that there are moments in our lives that feel like romantic comedies, and there are moments in our lives that feel like thrillers and horrors and tragedies and everything in between. So, you know, I think it was never a conscious thing for me. And I think that was because Emerald had such a clear vision for the film, but I never had to consider that really. I just knew that my job was just to sort of try and play Cassie as truthfully as I could and make her feel real. And, you know, there were lighter moments and there were darker moments, but it wasn't, it felt like it was never my responsibility. You know, it was Emerald, and because I had such faith in her as a director, I felt like I could just play and go all over the map. And I knew that she would, you know, sort of make the right decisions, you know, whether it was in the moment or in the edit. Like, you know, I had the freedom to sort of do, to try stuff. And so it never felt like it was really my job to sort of, to handle that. I think it was a real tightrope walk for Emerald, you know, and I think it, you know, I don't know anyone else who could have pulled it off, but it came from her head. So it was just I felt so secure in that because she just had it from the get-go.
Kind of going off of that, what outside of the the stars are blind scene, of course, because it's like that's everyone's favorite scene. What's another favorite scene of yours from the film?
I really loved the scene with Connie. I loved playing that scene. It's just that's one of those like crunchy scenes as an actor that you're like so excited to play. I mean, they all were though. You know, there were so many, and I think that's, you know, part of why we got such an extraordinary cast is that there's just no duff role in this. Like everyone has a great part. Alfred Molina came in for an afternoon to play Jordan because the writing is just extraordinary. And, you know, so all of those scenes felt like so much fun to play, you know, darker and some of them more difficult than others. But yeah, I mean, aside from the pharmacy and the whole kind of montage with Beau was very, very fun to shoot. We liked montage day or montage morning. I think we had like a morning for the montage. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking your time out again. I'm so happy, excited, proud, whatever I can say, whatever positive words I can say to both of you about this movie. It is truly, as I am quoted on the poster, a game-changing masterpiece. And I love the conversation that has been happening with this movie all year. And I think for many years to come, I think this movie is going to be around in the conversation for a very long time. So thank you both for being part of it, for making it, and for just being awesome human beings too.
Thank you so much, Scott. It's so nice to talk to you.
No problem. Good luck in the Oscars, and I'll probably see you on March 5th too for a little something.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye, guys. Bye.